And it's time to bring in our ballers. That'd be DraftKings contributor Kenny Ducey and Rotowire's Nick Whalen. Guys, 3 NBA playoff games headed our way tonight. Thank you. Let's break down your favorite plays in each of the following price ranges. All right, Kenny, let's start with who you're spending up for. Someone who is over 9K. And Kenny, 2 dudes are way more expensive than everyone else. Giannis at 10.9, Nikola Jokic at 10.7. Are you paying up for one of those guys?
So I don't hate going to Giannis here. I mean, he should be dominant here against the Heat. It is kind of a weird game, people thinking the Heat are going to bounce back here. And then Jokic, I don't love the matchup with how tough Portland's front court has been. He was fantastic in limited time. And also Denver lost the rebounding battle in last game. So I don't hate either of those plays, but I like a guy significantly more in this price range. And it's Damian Lillard at $9,400. Like, the savings here are just spectacular for what you're getting with this guy. I mean, he's played almost every minute. He played over 42 minutes last game. We saw him en route to we thought was going to be maybe a 60 or 70 point performance there in the scoring department. But still, look at the usage for this guy. It's over 34% the last 2 games. It's going to be there consistently. And I just don't see Damian Lillard not hitting his shots and not having a big game. This guy has consistently put up over 50 fantasy points for us all month long. And really, what's to stop him here? I mean, if he puts up 50 points for you, you're over or just about hitting 5 times value, which is exactly what you want. I do think that he is just dollar for dollar the best play on the slate. He's going to be taking the shots. He's had 10 or more assists in 3 straight games in this series. So give me Damian Lillard.
Yeah, Lillard coming off a huge 68.5 DK fantasy point performance. All right, Nick, what do you think? Are you going to pay up for Giannis or Jokic, or are you going to save some cash? Maybe a guy like Anthony Davis. He racked up 67 DK fantasy points in his last game.
I think Giannis is my favorite play, but I'm with Kenny that Lillard is probably the best value when you consider you're saving $1,500 that you can spend elsewhere, when you look to fill out the rest of your roster. But 60 plus DK points in his first 2 games of the series for Giannis. I don't know that he quite gets there in game 3, but his floor is really high. He seems to finally unlock something against this Heat defense, against which he really struggled last year. And I think towards the end of game 1, and certainly in game 2, he started to look a lot more comfortable. So he's a really safe play as far as guys who cost almost $11,000 go. You mentioned Anthony Davis, 67 DK points in game 2. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. He played better than he did in game 1, but I still didn't think Anthony Davis looked all that comfortable. The fact that he got to the line 21 times really, really helped him in terms of the scoring column. For as far as 37-point playoff games go, I think it was a little more underwhelming when you watch the game versus just look at the box score. So I'm a little concerned as far as Davis not being fully settled in yet in this series. So I'm with Kenny. I think Lillard's the best value overall at 9,400. We went for 34 and 13 in game 1, 42 and 10 in game 2. I think he realizes that for Portland to pull out this series, especially after what happened the other night, he has to score 40 plus, especially if CJ McCollum doesn't have it. So I wouldn't be surprised if he keeps it up and we see a similar performance tonight.
All right, Nick, how about someone in that 7 or 8K range? If someone that stands out to me, Drew Holiday for 7,600, he's scored 43 DK fantasy points in 4 straight games.
Yeah, Holiday's the guy at the top of my list as well. 7,600 is a really good price for a guy who is north of 8K just a couple of weeks ago. So 15 assists from Holiday in game 2. A lot of those, of course, went to Pat Connaughton or Bryn Forbes, who were just splashing threes from all over the court. That's not really sustainable. But you look back to game 1, 20 points, 11 assists, 3 rebounds. He should continue to play a ton of minutes. He was north of 40 in game 1. Obviously, historically, Coach Budenholzer has struggled to extend his stars minutes, but it kind of feels like there's a mandate this year that these guys have to play more minutes. We don't want to see Pat Connaughton for 29 minutes in a meaningful playoff game. So Drew Holiday is going to play a ton tonight in a game that should be a lot closer than what we saw in game 2. The other guy who stands out as a value to me in this range is Michael Porter Jr. at 7,100, another guy who's kind of woefully underpriced relative to where he's been for a lot of this season. Feels like he's due for a big game. He's played okay through these first 2 games of the series, obviously helped them get the win in game 2, but he's just 4 of 16 from 3 through these first 2 games. It feels like he's due for a breakout.
And in terms of Michael Porter Jr., Denver ranks 25th in DK fantasy points allowed to wings. So he could be poised to go off. Kenny, what do you think? A guy in the mid-range?
I also really like Drew Holiday here, but I'll talk about someone different as well, to give you a few options there. I like Devin Booker, $8,100. And just simply put, the minutes that you're guaranteed here, the minutes and the usage are just tough to pass up at this price. I mean, the guy's played 43 minutes per game in this series. He played 45 and then 40. And last game, he scored just as well as he did in game one, but they were sort of empty calories there, right? He didn't do anything else. He didn't get you assists or rebounds. I do think that that'll change just a bit here. And mainly when I'm looking at this game, I don't expect Cam Payne to take as many shots, and I also don't expect him to hit as many shots as he did in game one. DeAndre Ayton, I do think will be challenged a little bit more down low. I loved the minutes. I can't believe I'm saying this, that Andre Drummond gave the Lakers. He gave them fantastic minutes, and I think that DeAndre Ayton's going to find it a little more challenging. He's going to continue to find it a little more challenging. And Chris Paul clearly is not himself. So I think what that does is that leaves Devin Booker as the main offensive weapon once again. And I do think that his usage will continue to stay over 34%. And for that reason, at $8,100, he doesn't have the best matchup in the world against a good defense. I do like Michael Porter Jr. I do like Drew Holiday the most. But Devin Booker could be a really good value. Could be the best value of the night.
All right, let's talk about a guy who's in that 5 or 6K range. Kenny, where are you going?
I do think, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I do think that Andre Drummond could be an answer here at $5,900. I think that he has fantastic value. I do think that the Lakers are starting to use him a little bit more. And what happened was they just started off with Andre Drummond, and he was used a lot. He was used on the first few possessions of the game. They fed him the ball. They wanted to establish and send a message to DeAndre Ayton that they are there and they are going to be physical. The biggest difference between game one and game two for the Lakers was the physicality. They came off a game against the Warriors. The Warriors have one of the worst front courts in basketball. They're undersized. And the Lakers didn't have to do any work down there. Anthony Davis pretty comfortably, grabbing his rebound, scoring the basketball. Game one was a punch in the face for them down low. They got completely outclassed on the glass, out-rebounded, and just outplayed in the physicality department. LeBron James had to, roll over and, walk back over to the spot where there was an altar. There was a whole bunch of stuff going on there, right? They were punched in the face, the Lakers. Game two, they decided to go with Drummond for more minutes, 5 more minutes, and he gave them 12 rebounds in a short amount of time and scored the basketball. I have a hunch that they're going to continue to go to Andre Drummond for more minutes. And if he ends up playing 25 or more minutes in this game, I never really thought I would be saying it, but I really do think that he could turn in 6 times value. And to me, at this price, devoid of some other good options, I think he's worth it.
All right, Nick, what are you thinking for that 5 to 6K range? We did talk about DeAndre Ayton. He scored 37 plus DK fantasy points in back-to-back contests.
Yeah, Ayton at 6,300 does feel like a bargain to me for a guy who's 21 of 24 from the field through these first 2 games. If you watch the games, you see that basically all of the shots that he's attempting are dunks or layups because the Lakers are way too aggressive with these traps on Devin Booker, and they're setting themselves up for 3-on-2 or 2-on-1 or 4-on-3 situations where you have to collapse on the guy kind of running to the rim and he's able to dump it off to Ayton for an easy dunk. So unless the Lakers are willing to change their defensive scheme, which based on the game 1 to game 2 transition doesn't look like it's going to happen, I think Ayton is probably going to continue to feast on easy baskets down low. Andre Drummond, I would be lying, Kenny, if I said I didn't consider it as well. I think everybody thought after game 1 that they were going to pull back on Drummond. We were going to see more AD at the 5, maybe more Marc Gasol than we did in game 2. And they went the complete other way and it worked out. And I can't believe you didn't mention the fact that he hit a skyhook in that game, by the way, which was gorgeous. But I still don't necessarily trust Andre Drummond. He looks like he's always trying to catch like a golf ball instead of a basketball. He's extremely turnover prone. Defensively, I thought both he and Marc Gasol really struggled. Both defending the pick and roll and defending at the rim. So it's going to be unpredictable going forward. But at that price, Andre Drummond is worth the risk. I'll also throw out Dennis Schroeder at 5,800, who looked terrible in game 1. He was horrible down the stretch for the Lakers coming off of the COVID protocols, but he finally started to look more like himself in game 2, was really aggressive, had a couple blow-bys for layups. If he starts to look more like his old self, I think he could be a big-time bargain at 5,800.
All right, guys, quickly here on the last one, Nick, some savings, somebody who is under 5K.
I'll throw out a few names quick. Cam Payne, 4,800. This is an obvious one, especially if Chris Paul is still hampered. Cam Payne was awesome in game 2. Kendrick Nunn going up against Milwaukee. Solid in game 1, didn't do much on Monday, but 4,300, you're not asking for a whole lot there. Cam Johnson at 3,700. I like, doing a great job on the defensive end, a guy who can knock down threes. And then Dwayne Dedmon, the best player on the floor for the Miami Heat in game 2. I think we see a little bit more of him just for his rebounding and energy. He's almost minimum priced at 3,100.
Kenny, where are you going for value?
I really like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, $4,300 here. The main reason is the Lakers have shot so many uncontested shots in this series, specifically from 3. The Lakers have shot 36 uncontested threes. They're getting a lot of open looks here, and I think that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a perfect guy to capitalize on that. You also consider the fact that he plays so many minutes, over 30. I just love the fact that he's out there. Also, another guy like Robert Covington, $4,400, plays better at home, shoots the 3 really well. He's been playing a boatload of minutes over the last 2 games in this series. I do think that he'll get some more shots up here. And this price is just right. I mean, I wouldn't have played him at 5,500, but 4,400. Fire up Covington. Fire up KCP at 4,300. Let's get those 3-and-D wings out there.